this series of tutorials, which I'm going to put together to help people learn how to do beginner coding in C#. Essentially, this is to help my A-level class, and other classes I teach with coding, but I figured it would be also useful for anyone else on the internet. So first things you need to know about, you need to have a look in this folder. These are all the exercises, so it leads up from variables and data types and structure of code to if statements to while loops to functions, arrays and looping and classes and so on. And I'll make a video that will match each one of these and number it and name it the same. You also need to make sure that you create an account with Replit, and I've put links to all of this in the playlist details. So it's the playlist is called Beginner Coding in C#, and there's a link to the folder and a link to Replit there. So if I save that now, and you should be able to see that under the iCode channel, and then I'll be adding videos here. So this will be the first one. So the first thing we have to do is look at the first worksheet, and in this first worksheet I'm explaining to you the structure of code, so how we use brackets and imports and comments. So let's do a little example of that. So I go to Replit, and I'm going to create a new folder for this. So I'm going to call it coding tutorials for YouTube. And you can do the same. You can create your own folder in Replit. And then all the things that you do in the lessons or in these lessons, you need to create an example of in this folder. So I'll go into here and I'll create a Replit. I'm going to choose the language C#, and this is going to be called brackets, comments. So name it after the topic of this lesson. It will really help you look back at those bits of code. So these things that I've copied and pasted in the beginning, they come from W3C Schools. It's a website that is really brilliant. If I click on that, it will take me to a page. It has every single computer programming language in the world, but the one that we were looking at right now is C#. Advantages of programming in C# are it's very similar to a lot of other languages like Java, for example. It's used in Unity programming, so you can make games. It's also used in Microsoft products like in .NET. But essentially, it's a fairly good language to learn to begin to code on, and it's often used in education. So what we're going to look at is the first bit here, syntax. So if you look at this page, you can recap over everything I'm saying, and I will explain it to you. So what have we got here? Well, the first line we've got here, and I'll zoom in on this so you can see it very clearly, is an import statement. So I'm going to put a comment here. I do a // and I can write, this is an import statement. So we are importing the library system. Next thing we've got something called a class, and the class, this is a keyword class, but the class is a custom name. You can call it anything you want, but this one is called program. This is where we define it. And then we have brackets. Brackets need to have opening and closing. They need to have matching opening and closing. So if you've got an opening one here, there must be a closing one here, and then all the other code goes inside of it. And the same for this thing here that's called a function. It's called the main. Its name is main, the main function, and it's the code in that function starts here and it ends here on line 6. So all the code in that function must go in there, and then functions must be contained within a class. This is a special kind of application, a console app that is used in Replit. So let's put a comment here. This is a class called system. That's called program. Every opening bracket must have a closing bracket. Sometimes you get these red underlined errors because replit thinks you've written something wrong, but you haven't. And maybe sometimes you need to refresh the page. It's great, replit, brilliant website, but it's not perfect. It's doing a hell of a lot of stuff. So yeah, so then we've got this program and everything is contained within the class, like this function, then it has things in here. And the first thing we've got is a console.writeLine and we're printing hello world. That's often the first program you learn to write in a computer language, hello world. So if I run that again, or I run that for the first time, I'll see on the console, it's printing this message, hello world. There we go. If I change what is in these console.writeLine brackets and say hello YouTube, it will print something different to the screen or into this console here. So this console.writeLine is writing a line to this console. And anything that I put within these brackets is the thing that is printed to this console. Now, what I'm printing to this console is something called a string. So this is a data type that I'll talk about in the next video. But all strings are contained within an opening and a closing speech marks. So let's put a comment here. This prints a message that is a string contained within opening and speech marks. And it prints a message to the console. It writes a line to that console. And all code for this function must be contained within these brackets. If you do something like this, you'll get an error. And the compiler inside of the computer will try and tell you what's wrong with your code. It will say, oh, you are error, expected bracket. And it tries to tell you where it expects it. So it's expecting something around here and you can see that I've now got, I don't have a closing bracket for my function because I just deleted it. I still have a closing bracket for my class, but it thinks that bracket is for my function, which it isn't. It just doesn't have the right number of brackets. So if you delete a bracket, you could start on the outside, like the highest most bracket out, and you can see whether or not that's got a matching one. And it should highlight the closing one when I click on it, but it doesn't. It does highlight when I click on that. So that would indicate to me that that bracket is missing there for the function. And then I fix the error. So always try and read those errors when you get them. Like, for example, go to line 7 in main.cs. So that is all you need to know. To practice this is what you need to do after each one of these short videos. Look at these exercises. So I'm asking you at the end of the worksheet, I'm asking you to create a program that prints several lines saying different things. Try and use console.write. So one way of printing to the console is console.writeLine. But what happens if I did console.write like this? Write that in your code and run it and see what happens. Next thing you could do, remove an end of line character, so cause an error. What happens? What does the error message tell you to do? See if you can find the line. Then looking at this code, you can copy and paste this into your replit if you like. This would have to be the entire replit. But what's wrong with this? What am I missing here? Also, what's wrong with this code? What am I missing here? And you're going to need to compare what we've just written, or you should have written as an example, and look at some of these examples and see if you can figure it out.